Welcome to another video about the Mercedes Benz front drive shaft removal and reinstallation. This is the part 2 where we snap out the drive shaft and replace it. Alright, so right there we just snapped out the drive shaft and we're gonna slide it completely out. This is where the drive shaft slides in backwards into this differential axle looking thing that connects to the differential. So in order to install the new drive shaft, it's not as easy as removing it because the flange is not broken away and it's attached to the drive shaft and the space is very tight and it's not easy to push it forward in order to slide it backwards because, as you can see right here, the space is very tight and this big trans case is kind of preventing you from sliding it back in, and also that screw is preventing you from pushing it past it. So that screw is going to prevent putting the new drive shaft in, and we took the rubber boot off the new drive shaft and we put it directly onto the axle and the axle tip look-alike where the drive shaft needs to slide onto. In addition, the drive shaft needs to be rotated and aligned with that tip in order to slide on it because it doesn't fit in any position. It has a certain position you need to align it to. This is the old drive shaft with the broken flange. Right now we're thinking to look at the axles to fix the CV boots for the axles, and we're trying to figure out how we're going to put in the new drive shaft because there's very little space. Okay, so now this wire, that one, doesn't allow me to get in there. As you can see here under the exhaust pipe, as you can see towards the top of the video, you see a sensor that's mangled. There used to be a boot, like a metal boot, around the flange of the drive shaft that got destroyed and mangled away, and basically it got lost. And the bracket that connects to the exhaust system, we're gonna take that off and it's gonna slide towards the left. The point of view right now, you're seeing the front of the car. And as you can see also the sensor wire to the right of the exhaust system, we disconnected that in order to put in the drive shaft. At this stage the drive shaft is not completely fitted because we cannot put the rear of the drive shaft past the big oil pan case. Right now we're taking the bracket off. We're unscrewing the screws to move the bracket towards the left hand side. As you can see, the boot, the rubber boot on the drive shaft is still there. We took that off and we put it directly onto the axle tip on the differential so we can look inside the drive shaft and align it. This is a look off the bracket and you will see now the drive shaft doesn't have the rubber boot, and also you see the bracket right there next to the elbow. It's behind the left hand. That's the bracket removed from the exhaust system or disconnected. Now we're going to snap in the drive shaft. But it's not past the screw. That screw right there that gave us trouble removing it is going to give us trouble putting it in. Well, this is a shot from removing the drive shaft, the old one. So you kind of have to force it a little bit to put it in. Is gonna scratch the drive shaft eventually. Our drive shaft, from all those trial and errors, it got so scratched up it didn't even look like new, but it did function like a new one once we got it on. It was a difficult process to put it in because the space is very tight, and as you can see, this bracket that kind of vibrates right now is the main bracket that holds this entire transmission, transcase, drive shaft, whatever you want to call it. And that plays a role. You have to push it up and down in order to remove the broken drive shaft. And you can't do this without releasing this bracket, so you can push and pry side to side the parts as you try to put the drive shaft in, and also to remove it. It took us a lot of trials and errors, and eventually we suspended the car off the ground completely with all four wheels, because initially we started with the car only suspended by the front wheels. We suspended it on all four wheels because you need to spin the wheels in order to align the drive shaft.
This is the drive shaft, and it's a pain to put in without taking anything out, except you have to take this thing off. That with the 8 screws. This is towards the back of the car, what you're seeing right now. And right there, wait a minute.
We use this lever to move the trans case a little bit to the left from the right hand side by prying the lever against the body of the car and sliding this exact mechanism towards the left. Right there, we put the lever there where the glove is, and we slid this entire trans case towards the left. As you can see, the ball bearing here, it has give, or the coupler, the rubber coupler, I'm not sure what it's called. So it has give, and while one person does that, the second person slides backwards the drive shaft. It's either you need to have 2 people and yourself, or just 2 people. If you want to do this just as one person, you may have to either pry that somehow and put like an exact piece of block of wood that may maintain your space while you go and you reach out to get the drive shaft and slide it backwards. Otherwise, I mean, there's a lot of other options towards that, but this is one way we figured out how to do it, and it took us quite a bit of time. Right now, all we have to do is align the flange with the front drive shaft, or the front drive shaft flange with the screw holes in order to tighten the screws, and we will do that by spinning the rear wheels. So right there, if the car is not suspended, you can't align the drive shaft in order to put the screws in. So the car needs to be suspended completely, and probably if it's not suspended, it won't be able to pry to the left the entire trans case, because the weight of the car will maintain it aligned with the saddle point of gravity. So keep that in mind. The car has to be suspended on all 4 wheels, or yeah, from all 4 wheels. After that, once we slid it in, everything else was easy to put back, except we didn't find, or we didn't even look for, that metal boot that kind of covers the flange and everything. However, there's plastic panels underneath the car which prevent most of the gunk and dust to accumulate on top of the parts and mechanisms here. So that's how you can remove a drive shaft and install a drive shaft, a front drive shaft.
There, in order to insert the drive shaft, you have to release these here, 8, right? Release these. You need a second person to push this on the side as the other person pushes the drive shaft backwards, and in there, right there. And it's a pain to bring it down in order to put the screws in. And we've been trying for a few hours to figure this thing out. But if you don't release this main bracket here on the transmission's trans case, you won't be able to move the transmission to the side. So pushing from the passenger side towards the left side of the car, while one person pushes the drive shaft backwards. Otherwise it doesn't work. And that's the drive shaft there. and you push that thing upwards, and you push it all the way in that spot over there, in the empty spot, in order to align it with what it looks like. What it inserts itself in, it would look exactly like axle that goes into the wheel, like the tip of the axle. And it needs to be aligned because it has two wide bars, 180 degrees opposed. So you may have to have somebody rotate the rear wheels, or you can rotate the shaft drive to push it in. I think that's pretty good explanation.